That's both, because here's the thing. We often talk about, oh, sorry, not to correct it, but we do make that statement, like, oh, it's about brains, not brawn. Well, it's about both. Yeah, he wasn't the strongest person in the world, David, but he did know how to throw, he did know how to sling a stone, so that when the opportunity, so you might look at that and go, oh, come on, when would you ever need that skill? Who knows? I really mean that, by the way. Who knows? Think about a skill, like, are you ever going to have to sew in your life? Why did I bother learning how to sew? I'm never going to have to know how to sew. You don't know if you're ever going to have to sew. Wouldn't it be better to know how to do it and not need it than to need it and not know how to do it?
Yeah.
What's wrong with having too many skills? So David actually had trained in a sling, so he had trained kind of as a soldier to be able to do this stuff, so that when the opportunity met his training, he was the person on the spot to do it. You'll be surprised, man, by some of the things that when you have a skill set, that you'll be able to start using it for. You know, when I was growing up, my dad, probably one of the best things my dad ever did for me was, I would go to, and I remember I was like a little kid, I'm talking like 8, 9 years old, 7, 8, 9 years old. I'd go to him and say, the sink in my bathroom isn't working. Like, what do you mean? It's like filling up with water. So my dad would say, well, fix it. I was like 7, 8 years old. I'm like, how do I fix it? And he's like, figure it out.
Jesus.
So I'd kind of go in there and I'd look at it and he'd go, well, so what do you think's wrong? I said, well, water's not going down. So he's also, where do you think the problem is? And I'd look and say, oh, it's probably in this pipe thing right here. And he'd say, okay, then you should fix that. And I'd say, okay. And then I'd go and how do I do it? He said, figure it out. So I would sit there, and to his credit, he would just sit there and watch me do it and just make sure I didn't die in the process. That's how I learned to do a lot of stuff. That's how I learned to do electrical stuff. I remember that's probably the one time he ever stepped in and stopped me. I was about to fix something electrically. He says, hold on, you should turn off the power in the house first. Oh. So you don't get electric.
Got a fork.
Oh, that's a good idea. So I don't get electrocuted. It's the only time I ever remember him stepping in. I remember fixing a pipe one time because it was clogged, and I opened it up, and water just goes everywhere because I didn't put a bucket or something down there to collect the water in case it fell down. I didn't know what was going to happen to the water. And there's just water everywhere. And I'm sitting there in this gunky water. And my dad's like standing outside the bathroom, was looking at me. He goes, "You should clean that up too."
God.
So I learned a lot of things. I remember one time when I first started using computers, my dad grabbed the keyboard and started slamming it on the table. Bang, bang. Throws it up. Then he goes bang and falls. And he goes, "So you're not going to break the computer. So don't be afraid of it. Work on it." And that's how I learned how to fix stuff, was that he would let me just, mess with stuff, and then bad stuff would happen, and then now you learn what not to do, So how often do you ever have to do plumbing stuff? Oh, I do a lot. I fix washing machines and stuff like that for people. I can fix dryers. I can fix all kinds of stuff. I can fix cars. I can fix all kinds of stuff.
That's impressive.
But it's only because, well, first off, if you grew up poor, you have to fix all your own stuff.
Pretty much.
So you don't just go like, the washing machine's not working. Let me get a new one. My brakes aren't working. Let me just take it to the mechanic. No, you learn how to fix your own brakes, and then you fix them, and you're like, let's test it out. Let's see how this goes. Yeah. So one of the things I learned was that when you put on new brakes, you'd have to pump the brakes a whole bunch before you actually go out and drive on them because they're not quite calibrated yet. You can ask me how I learned that.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Don't you also change like the fluid?
You don't have to. You don't have to, like every,
Check your privilege.
What's that?
Check your privilege.
Yeah, oh, look at Mr. Change the brake fluid over here. That's like $6 a bottle, man. What are you talking about? I learned how to change my own oil. And then finally one day someone spoke sense to me. If anybody here changes your own oil, someone finally spoke sense to me about it. And it's like, how much are you saving? How much money are you saving by doing it yourself? Yeah, at the time it was like $3. Because by the time you have to buy the pan, then you have to take it over to dump the oil and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm saving like $3 or $4. And he's like, how long does it take you? I'm like, oh, like an hour or so just to let everything drain, whatever. And he's like, well, so you're working on your car for $3 an hour. Yeah, good point. He said, you can just take it somewhere, spend an extra $3 or $4, but you get it done for you, and you can do stuff in the meantime, and they'll do it much faster. Oh yeah, I guess that's fun. So I don't change my own oil anymore, but I can. I can change my own tire. I saw this great thing. Last year. Pulled over on the side of the road was a woman and a guy. There's a guy, and he's like leaning on the cart on his phone, and the girl's down there changing the tire. And I'm like, bro, you don't have a boyfriend, you have a girlfriend. And you can't even change a damn tire. It's like, well, shouldn't she be able to? Yes, you should be able to. You should both be able to. You know, when are you ever going to have to know how to do it? Well, if there's roadside service, is that what you want to do? You want to depend on a roadside service the rest of your life? What's that?
Stuck in the mountain.
Yeah, exactly. You're stuck in a mountain. You
No
know,
service.
I get service. How am I ever going to fix my tire? There's an extra one in your trunk. I don't know how to do that. And you're going to wait. You're going to depend on the plumber. You know, I have a friend of mine, for example. I've fixed their washing machine. God, it's got to be like 4 or 5 times now. There's a manufacturing flaw with the washing machine where stuff gets pulled out of the washing machine and ends up in the water pump. So you open up the water pump and there's like socks and all kinds of stuff in there. How does it ever get in there? It's a design flaw with the washing machine. But before when an error code comes up, what does it cost to bring a plumber out there every single time? You know.
Oh.
So there's nothing wrong with Gosh, I was going to say there's nothing wrong with learning skills. There's a really good reason to learn skills, as many as possible, because when are you ever going to need to use them? You don't know. In fact, you'll never know until you have the skill. In other words, if you don't know how to do it, it would never occur to you to do it. It's kind of like with chemistry. I don't know if anybody here is taking chemistry or you like chemistry. When are you ever going to have to know chemistry? I don't know. But I know that if I did need it, it would never occur to me to use it because I don't know it. But if you know it, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I have an application for it, you find applications all over the place for this stuff. So, with Jose and Marti, this is a different story altogether. What you all said was very good. Questions? Problem with it is that we live in an age in which certainly hills look down upon the mountains. What do we think of when we think of a mountain? What are some characteristics of a mountain? No, when we think of mountains, what are some of the characteristics of a mountain? Yeah.
Oh.
So they're big, they're strong, sturdy. How long do they last?
Pretty long time.
Yeah. They last for a long time.
A lot. They last a lot.
They're powerful. What do we think of when we think of a hill?
A hill? A speed bump.
It's a speed bump, yeah. It's a short speed bump.
Oh, 20 million years.
And so forth.
20
What I'm saying is that some of you all are hills. And you look down on the people who are mountains. In other words, there are people in this world who are strong, sturdy, independent, self-reliant.
And last 20 million years.
They last a long time. Because they're sturdy and they're strong.
That's
But, and then you can even think about the characteristics of what that person is. And then you've got people who look down on them. Oh my God, they're like toxic. They're just,
Twitter. I'm sorry. Hey, we ain't coming down to the
Yelling and
debate.
go flying out like that.
Calm down there, Logan Paul. I ain't gonna square up to you again.
You're activating his fight or flight response. Please stop.
Exactly. Trigger scans, fight or flight. The door's way over there. There's a TV between us.
This is a danger zone? No, this is the exit zone.
You've
Let's
got
go.
some people who are big, and not even having to be like physically big, but strong, sturdy, independent. These are people who, let's say, for example, who will say, oh, violence is violence. You get punched in the face, that changes your attitude. And these are people who will say, words are violence. If you say a bad word to me, it's like getting punched in the face. Anybody in here ever been punched in the face before? Been punched in the nose? Would you rather have a bad word said to you, or would you rather get punched in the face?
I'd rather get called a slur, yeah.
Just call me a slur and I'll walk away.
Yeah. And if you've been punched in the face proper, you can sit there and think, you know what? I would rather the person just call me a slur next time.
I'm never gonna see them again.
These are people who think of themselves as being elevated, because these are people who will say something very brave like, violence is never the answer. And then we sit there and go, you're such an elevated human being.
Oh my God, give him
Now, of course,
more.
why would you think, if you're a hill, why would you ever think that violence is the answer? Well, this 85-pound beta cup who's sitting there, and it's just like,
What else would
we should just never fight. And words are, of course, why would you fight? What would happen to you if you fought?
More problems will
Die.
occur.
Yeah. You look at when we look at the rabbit, and the rabbit is sitting there and just chewing on grass, like, and then looks over the lion and tells the lion, violence is never the answer. Do we sit there with the rabbit and go, oh, brave rabbit. Look at the rabbit speak his truth.
That's something Disney would pull off.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh my god, I don't know.
Then don't say it, man. Because all it's doing is distracting, especially
sorry.
when people go back and watch these things afterwards. All I hear is just.
I already watched it, yeah.
Yeah, then you know.
Yeah.
So you should know better. For God's sake, man. So what would happen if the rabbit did go over and attack the lion?
He did.
Probably get bitch slapped.
Yeah, he would
Yeah,
die.
he would die.
He would die. I just said it.
Oh.
He would die. And so we don't look at the rabbit and say the rabbit is virtuous because it refuses to engage with the lion. Instead, we say the rabbit is smart because he would die if he did. Now, the lion is sitting over there looking at the rabbit and is like, I could totally eat this thing. But he's not going to. There's virtue there. The mountain, the hill that isn't really capable of anything on its own, these are the same people who will say things like, we get more accomplished together. And then we all go, such an inspirational poster. You're right, we get more done together. Do we really? No. There's no monument that's dedicated to a committee. There's only monuments that are dedicated to individuals, because individuals are the people who get things done. Groups are the ones that will compromise. Groups are the ones that all get together and say, well, we should talk about this. We should talk about this. We should have a conversation about this. We should talk about this. And then when they finally do get something done, it doesn't represent anybody's vision. It represents a mishmash of everyone's vision. And so therefore, there's nothing that's solid behind it. There's nothing real behind it. When you have a group of individuals who are able to stand up together and speak with one voice, that's an unstoppable force. This is why when you talk about teamwork, and you look at, for example, like operators, like you look at Navy SEALs, those are a whole bunch of mountains. They're able to stand together and work towards one goal. They don't sit around and say, well, let's have a conversation about what this should be like. Let's have a conversation about how this should go. No, there's nothing about that at all. There's a goal, let's get this thing done. And that was the word that we started off with, a goal. Only mountains can overcome mountains. But hills, however, today, we have the sense of, it's virtuous to be dependent on others. It's virtuous to be powerless. It's virtuous to be harmless. So it makes me feel bad for you guys, man. Like, you're being told constantly that your very nature is toxic, and that there's anything that you do that's an expression of that has to be changed, and that has to be fixed. Everybody else can just follow their nature. But if you express any kind of mountainness, well, that's a problem. And this is a problem for everybody, because even then, girls, what kind of a guy do you want? Is this the one you want? The one who wants it, well, that's a very scary individual over there. Let's call the authorities. Let's call the police, and maybe they'll come over in an hour and deal with the situation for me. I'm not saying you want the person who walks around and is just like roided up and you have to hold them on a leash. Or maybe you do want that person, I don't know.
Oh my god!
And they're just like, they want you out there and just kill everybody. And you're like, no, don't. You don't know them the way I do.
God, no.
Yeah, maybe you do want that person, but probably not. What you want is the person who can go out and hang out and all of a sudden flip a switch if necessary and be this thing right here. In other words, it isn't virtuous to walk around and just kill everything that you see. It's virtuous to be able to and choose not to. And so this is very early on when I was talking with you guys, in the first couple of weeks of school, I was saying that you want to be able to recognize that you are capable of terrible things, and yet choose to not do terrible things. Now, all of you in here are capable of doing terrible things, whether it's with your bodies or whether it's with your words. In other words, you can do terrible physical harm to people. Almost everybody in here. I imagine most of you could, for example, get a hold of a firearm if you really wanted to and do terrible damage in this school, but you choose not to, and I appreciate that. And if you were to, I'd really, really appreciate it if you didn't start in this room. If you want a list of rooms, I can give them to you. Just kidding.
Oh my god!
You'd be surprised. I've been in some meetings so far where they've fast forwarded to a certain part of my video. I'm like, oh man, what did I say?
Oh boy!
You said scam. Oh, it was a joke.
Oh my god! I take that very.
I've gotten a strike before. I have no idea why.
Oh my god!
That's amazing. YouTube gives me a strike for just talking to a class. I have no idea what it is I even said. But you don't want that person. I'm sorry. You want to recognize in yourself that you're capable of that, because then that gives you a sense of what kind of power you have in life. You also have the ability to destroy people with your words. You know, go online, say terrible things, you know, make false accusations, make anonymous accusations. You're all capable of doing horrible and terrible things. Now, we should all be aware of that, and so therefore that gives us incentive, by the way, to be nicer to each other. But then you can realize, wow, this person next to me could destroy me. And if you're looking at it authentically, I don't mean like, oh man, they couldn't do shit. Oh, people can do way more than you think they can, especially if you have family. You know, I remember I was with a friend of mine. He was, I don't know how to say it another way, he was psychotic. He became an LAPD officer, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he did get kicked off. He did get kicked off the force, but I remember one time I was with this guy and we were parked at a 7-Eleven, and his name was Isaac, very nice guy for the most part. And we're sitting there, and this guy pulls up behind us, and he runs over to a payphone. This is back when they were payphones, you remember? And he sits there, he's like, oh man, this guy's blocking us in. I said, yeah. So we're sitting there for a minute or so, we're waiting, and he kind of gives a quick honk, and the guy's on the phone. The guy turns and he's telling him, I'm trying to back out. The guy's like, yeah, hold on. And then another minute or so goes by, and he's like, man. So he gets out there, and he tells the guy, guys, he said, we got to go. And the guy was just like, yeah, hold on, I'll move in a minute. So he gets back in the car, and then he just goes, no, we have to go, right? I said, yeah, we have to go. I wish I had known what I was saying. Oh. He got out of the car, very calmly walked over to the guy, grabbed the phone, just yelled, he'll call you back. He pulls the phone out, he pulls the cord out of the phone, and slams the receiver down, grabs the dude, and drags him back to his car. And this guy's terrified. The guy like scurries. I remember it was a Mercedes. And the guy goes to get inside. He's fumbling with the keys, and it wasn't moving fast enough for Isaac. So Isaac goes, boom, punches a hole right through the window. Reaches in and unlocks the door. Blood pouring down this guy's hand now. And the guy gets in the car, and of course he speeds away. And Isaac comes in the car, and he's like, arm outside the car because he's bleeding. He's like, can you hand me that towel, bro? Real calm. Like, I'm like, yeah, they homie, let me get that for you. He wraps up his hand, and we drive away. He got glass stuck in his hands, and ended up having to go to the hospital to get glass taken out of his hand. And he was just like, I feel really silly about this.
What?
Silly.
Silly, huh?
I'm a Leo. Well, you can help it.
Oh my
I'm like, dude, I didn't say much to him except handing him the thing, going, yeah, we should, because otherwise you're going to get glass stuck in there. It's going to bother you for the rest of your life. It's going to hit nerves. Like, yeah, you're probably right. So he goes and gets. Now this is the guy who could flip that switch, but this was the guy who couldn't control the switch flipping very often. If you guys know Aaron Hernandez, the football player, this was a guy whose switch was just turned all the time. You don't want that person, because that's a person who's just going to be, problematic their entire life. You want the person probably, but again, we're living in an age in which the people who are here will look down on people like that and talk about, oh my gosh, they're just so violent, they're so this, they're so that. Well, of course you would think so. Now, this doesn't mean that you should go around learning how to beat everybody up. That's not the case. But you should be all of these things. And what should you be? Should you be a warrior? Should you be a scholar? Should you be a mechanic? Should you be a plumber? Should you be a dancer? Yes. Yeah. Be all of these things. That doesn't mean, again, that you have to go, fight professionally. Of course not. Any more than you should go fix cars professionally. That you should go dance professionally. But my goodness, you're capable of doing all of these things, and all of these things are helpful in life to a certain extent, even if you don't like walking around afraid very much. It doesn't mean that, again, it doesn't mean you can kill everybody you meet, but it means that whoever targets you is going to be in for more of a fight than they realize. It also means that when you walk out into the dance floor, you're not just sitting there. You're doing stuff like this, hoping that you get someone's attention, like, God, I hate dancing. Maybe if you're better at it, maybe more practice. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticism, Wednesday. Happy Wednesday.